Okay, we now have a quorum, so the meeting of Faculty Senate will now come to order. Welcome, everyone. We do have a full agenda, so we're going to try to be as efficient as possible this afternoon. I will now check in with Potomac State and WVU Tech in how many senators are present at those two campuses. Tech?
WVU Tech has 2 senators present.
And Potomac State?
Potomac State has 3.
Thank you. The minutes from last Faculty Senate meeting that took place on February 10th have been distributed as an annex in your agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from February's meeting? Okay. Potomac State, do you have any additions or corrections? Potomac State, do you have any additions or corrections to the
No, ma'am.
Sorry. And Tech?
No additions or corrections.
All right, minutes from February's meeting are approved as written. We will now, he snuck in. We will now have our report from the sneaking president, President Key.
I'm not certain I like being called sneaky, but I appreciate that anyway. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry. I just was slipping in. As a matter of fact, you start right on time, Emily. It's a curse, but nonetheless, I appreciate it. And to my colleagues wherever you are, at to Potomac State and to Tech, I appreciate you also. So I'm going to be fairly short today because I know the provost and Dr. Marsh are here. We want to talk a little bit about the coronavirus, and I think that that's important. For us to understand exactly what the university is doing and what our procedures are and what what our and the protocol that we have. I'll just say a couple of things. You know, these are things that do happen in the life of a university, in the life of a country where you have these things going on. There have been about 570 reported cases now in this country, and you know, one can say that it's panic driven, but I think that we all need to be careful. Of course, I'm in the most vulnerable. So I was listening today. They said those people who are about 75 years of age, you ought to stay home and go to bed. And I thought, well, to hell with you. I'm not staying home and going to bed. So anyway, so I'm. I think that I think precaution is important, but we also don't want to overreact, and we don't want to underreact. Let me just talk about one thing I do want to say is that the legislative session finished on Saturday at midnight. 60 days and this session was very, very quiet. Very quiet. By that I mean there was not a lot of Sturm und Drang. There was not a lot of protests, a variety of other things. We didn't have a campus carry bill to deal with. A number of the things that, of course, were significantly problematic in a public sense to us. Stabilized our budget this year. We had a number of bills that went through, which are really about economic development and the role of the university in economic development, and all those were positively passed. I think that I think the opportunity for us to work even more closely and align ourselves with the Department of Development and with those who are in charge of creating a different economic environment in the state, that we are fully aligned with that through our West Virginia Forward efforts, through a number of activities that we're engaged in. And so all in all, it was a successful legislative session. Obviously, it's an election year. We have a primary coming up, a gubernatorial primary coming up in May, and then we have a general election. And as you know, in an election year, it's always it's always an issue of people positioning themselves. So we'll see how things work out in that regard. But we feel very, very solidly engaged with the state, and certainly the legislature was fully engaged with us and our folks, Rob Alsop, Travis Mollahan, Rocco Facillo, they represent us at the state level and do an excellent, excellent job. And so saying that, I'm really going to turn my time over to the provost, if that's all right. Oh, thank you, Emily. Yes, does anyone have any questions from, anyone have any questions here? I'm sorry, I keep looking like I'm looking at heaven, but does anyone have any questions here? Seeing or hearing none. Anyone on the, from Potomac State or from Tech? Any questions?
No questions, sir.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. So, Madam Provost?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm just going to take the time today to talk about the coronavirus because it's an ongoing situation, and I know that's of great concern to faculty, students, and parents. So my first thing that I want to say is that when I'm asked if the administration is preparing for the coronavirus, I would say absolutely we're on it as best as we can be in an evolving situation. So there is a university-wide planning group and subgroups that are meeting regularly. And just to give you an idea, I have a phone call every morning at 8:45 with some key administrators to talk about what has happened overnight. So we're definitely watching the situation, and we are doing as much contingency planning as we can. So I want to walk through some of those things with you today. First of all, we have no immediate plans to close the campus. And really, that is a worst case scenario. If that is happening, though, we do need to have some idea of how we would teach out the semester, right? We don't want to just say we're going to close campus and not be prepared for that. So we are looking at the possibility of teaching out all of our classes online. We do have a bandwidth issue that we need to determine, can we actually do that? Will the system crash? We have somebody here from online who in a minute I'm going to ask her to address that. But in the interim, I sent out my email on Friday. We're suggesting that if faculty don't have familiarity with eCampus and how to use online tools and sort of what's involved in either putting your class online or putting elements of your class online, there is a website. The Teaching and Learning Commons has a page that tells you, has some tools and an explanation of what you can do, but also that we're having trainings that we're offering to faculty. And so Tracy, do you want to say anything about that?
Well, while this is coming up, I'll just explain that the Teaching and Learning Commons has really been working with our partners, including information technology services and also libraries, as well as the health sciences folks, to make sure that we have the resources mobilized to help faculty who need to put materials online as quickly as possible. We have a website that we've developed, and if you go to our main TL Commons page, front and center. So when you first go to our page now, you will see front and center contingency planning and preparedness. We have sessions now scheduled on March 13th, 25th, and 26th, both face-to-face open labs as well as webinars available to walk through just what are your options, whether it be from a synchronous perspective or an asynchronous perspective. Let's talk through that. We have tools. eCampus is what's used on the main campus. We also have SOL on health sciences. We have My Media Sites, Panopto. I'm throwing out a whole lot of terms. They may or may not mean anything to you yet, but if you need to put something online, please reach out to us. We are here to help. We also have people available to go to departmental meetings. We're already getting requests for those. So we are here to assist you, and we'll get through it together.
I do want to say that if we close campus, it will not be just catch as can. I mean, we will communicate to you if the entire campus has to go online and how we do that. But the point is that you might just want to be beginning to be prepared. If I were teaching right now, I would want to have that knowledge so that I'm not just sitting around waiting for something to happen. So that's part of what we're saying to you. About travel. So we've canceled all faculty-led international study abroad for spring break courses. We announced that about 2 weeks ago, and those faculty were working out a way to compensate them. Everybody's been really great about that. There were 15 courses that we had to cancel. I will tell you right now that we are seriously considering whether to either recommend or require that faculty cancel all non-essential work travel over the next few weeks, including domestic. We have not gone there yet. But what I would urge you all to do, some universities are doing this, I would urge you to look at your e-news every morning and check the website for updates every day. Because if this, again, the situation is evolving and it may be something that we determine we need to do. And if so, we'll decide that very quickly. Just because traveling right now is, you know, especially if you don't have to, is just something that is not necessarily recommended. And then for the research labs, and by the way, we understand that if we were to go to a teach out, that it would be very difficult to teach out the labs, right? So that is something that we would have to work around. But the research office has actually put some information on their site and on the university's Corona website about what they would need to know in terms of if we had to shut down the university, how to keep some of the labs going, what to close. So I would urge you, those of you who work in research labs, that to be checking out those updates. Attendance policy, again, we ask that you err on the side of being lenient for students who say they're sick, and that some students may be self-quarantined after the spring break. We'll talk a little bit about in a moment about spring break, but you know, just err on the side of being overly cautious. And for faculty, the same goes for you. So if you're not feeling well, then you need to work with your chair and or your dean to make sure that you're not also coming to class and infecting students, and that you are able to do work assignments from home. And so you know, if you're finding a challenge with that, let us know, but we need to be lenient in both directions. We have added hand sanitizers for what they're worth to high traffic areas, and we'll have additional signage that will go up after spring break that tells students and faculty where those are. If you feel like you're not getting them enough for your unit, then you can go directly to facilities and they will provide more. Okay. Again, spring break is a concern. We know we have students, a lot of students and faculty that are continuing to make travel plans. I'm going to ask Dr. Marsh to come up and talk a little bit about what we're thinking around the return of those students. Yeah, come on up.
Well, I want to make sure that that we are prepared inside of the university as well as in the state. And you guys know, and I won't go into great detail, but this is a virus that jumped from an animal source, from bats to people. It is related to a normal cold virus, but it's different. We don't have any native immunity to this virus, so it's much easier for it to spread person to person. We are starting to test, and at this point, we have in the neighborhood of 500 cases in the United States. I think 423 is the number that the CDC has published. 19 deaths across the world. There's 100,000 plus cases. According to China, about 17% of people will need to be hospitalized and about 3% died. In South Korea, which has had much more global testing, surveillance testing, then the number of hospitalized people and the deaths is much lower. And the feeling now across every place, it's about a 2% mortality, that's 2. Here in the US, we have very good sort of approaches to be able to help people survive if people get sick. As Gordon pointed out, people who are much more susceptible are people with chronic diseases, heart disease, lung disease, asthma, diabetes, and people that are older. And many of the deaths have happened, the mortality rate goes up in the 70 to 80 and 80 to 90-year-old groups. So ultimately, what we are really trying to do is both identify people that have been infected and help make sure that we quarantine those people, or people at risk of infection, so they don't spread it to other people, because this is a virus that you can spread even when you're not very symptomatic. And the majority of people, 80 to 95% of the people, depending on which data source you believe, are basically either minimally symptomatic or mildly to moderately symptomatic. But that means not having to go to an emergency room, not having to go to a hospital, not needing that level of care. And the current treatment is just, fluids, antipyretics for fever, Tylenol, nonsteroidals, sleep, and keeping into contact with sort of your medical care team. Currently, we have 5 cases under investigation in the state of West Virginia. 2 people came back with negative coronavirus tests, and 3 people were still outstanding. On this campus, we have 1 person who has a test outstanding, and they have some roommates that are being quarantined. So it's not, we haven't had a confirmed case in West Virginia yet. This will likely be a safer place just because we don't have the kind of traffic going in and out of the state as we would on the coast or with a major airport hub where people are coming in and out. But we have a lot of people from a lot of different places who travel here. So we need to be thoughtful. In general, this virus spreads person to person and generally by droplet communication. So if you're sick, if you have a fever, if you have a cough, stay inside. And if you have fever with that, you should contact your physician, and there's numbers that we've posted for WVU Medicine, et cetera. What we're gonna do is we would generally like to take some swabs of people that are febrile with coughs and colds, not because we're worried necessarily they have coronavirus, but to make sure they don't have influenza, which is a treatment we can give treatment for, or H1N1, or other kind of viral illnesses. The state now has the ability to test for coronavirus. So this novel, the COVID-19, the novel coronavirus, in the past we had to send to the CDC. So for us, a couple of the big events that are coming up, as Mary Ann said, we have spring break coming up next month or next week. And so the recommendation from CDC is that in general, we should try to curtail non-essential travel. We definitely want to curtail non-essential travel to meet with big groups of people because it's much harder to control the environment there. You want to be careful about not going to endemic areas of coronavirus infection. Seattle, Washington is kind of a hot spot for us in the country. New York City has a number of cases, but they also have a massive population, which kind of goes together. Planes are probably safer than boats. Cruises should be something, in my opinion, you have a cruise now, don't go. I mean, and you have to follow your heart, but your risk of getting infected, and you'll see cruise ships now that are cruising around the peripheral parts of the United States with US citizens not being able to unboard. That's something that I would pay a lot of attention to because again, a lot of people coming together, a lot of big meetings are being canceled. One of the things that we're talking about with our colleagues at the hospital and the clinics and also with our state people and local health departments is how do we repatriate all of these students that are going on spring break? And the truth is we don't know yet. A lot of this is going to be self-monitoring and self-reporting, and people that have gone into higher risk areas will need likely to be screened, and they may screen themselves for fever, cough, cold type symptoms. And if they do develop that, we will probably ask them to not come to class. The routine right now is to try to self-quarantine these people that we believe are at risk for 14 days, because the incubation period for the novel coronavirus is 2 to 14 days. And again, people can be very much less symptomatic and still be able to communicate the virus. And that's part of the issue of how much do we test, because the more people we test, the more people we identify who can be sources of infection that can spread to other people. So, for our direction, we, as Mary Ann said, we would be in favor from the health standpoint only to limit non-essential travel, domestic and foreign. We would be in favor of telling our students on spring break not to go where you're congregating with a bunch of people, stay off cruise ships. If you're flying somewhere, fly somewhere to go home, to be with family, as opposed to the meccas for spring break. But, as we are all independent people making our own decisions, we want to make sure that we are providing safety both for the students that are leaving and the faculty and the staff and the students and the trainees that are here, but also for the people that won't be going somewhere with other people coming back from their travel, et cetera. So I don't know if there's other points that you guys have questions about or that I can clarify. We are working very closely with our state, DHHR, our Chief Health Officer, Kathy Slemp, Bill Crouch, Secretary of DHHR, the Governor's Office, working closely with President Gee, with our senior leadership group of the university, with our health system, WVU Medicine, with all of the medical schools and all the health systems in the state. So we're all trying to share common information and make sure we are communicating clearly. And we're trying to communicate with one voice, although sometimes it gets challenging because there's things that pop up that are unique to different places. But ultimately, we want to be a reference for you guys. So what I will do for you, so I'm going to give you guys my cell number. If you guys have any questions, feel free to call me or text me, 614-496-1621, and we can circulate that. And my email's up in health science. I'm cbmarsh@hsc.wvu.edu. Feel free to reach out. We're going to start to identify front door numbers for people to call for questions, for any issues, but I want to make sure that I am a resource and I have a team of people I'm working with daily, multiple times a day, in fact, trying to plan and trying to make sure that we are addressing the health issues that we have today. And also, you know, as we experience our first cases of coronavirus, and we will in the state, even though we haven't yet, no reason to panic. It's a viral illness. It's a bit worse than influenza as far as outcome, but currently to date, 5 times more people have died from the flu in this world than have died from the novel coronavirus. So if we continue to be thoughtful and observant, but not panicky, we'll get through this just like we've gotten through everything else. And I have a lot of confidence in the leadership of the state and the institution and our health system to know that we can treat and provide care for whatever people here need. We're in good shape that way. Are there questions, or is there anything I can answer to clarify any comment that I made?
School of Medicine. I have a question regarding sort of, should there become a contamination infection issue on campus, are custodial staff being appropriately trained for the cleaning, hygiene of surfaces that may need to be decontaminated?
So my understanding is that working through David Beaver and the group with facilities, the people are not only being trained, but we are moving forward in doing sort of proactive cleaning and sort of disinfecting of areas, high yield areas, doorknobs, elevator buttons, drinking fountains in an ongoing basis. And if there's any point contact, we will certainly do appropriate measures to clean. Remember, the other thing that's really important right now for you guys, if you're sick or you have a cold, don't be a hero, don't come to work, stay home, you know, and you might say, well, my gosh, I've had 1,000 of these and I've come to work, no problem. This is different, and your responsibility, and this is really the point, that all of our responsibility aren't just to ourselves, they're to each one of our neighbors. And like Mr. Rogers said, we want to be good neighbors here, and we don't want, there's a lot of things that we want to share and connect with. This is one we don't. And so if you're coughing, if you're sick, don't come to work. And if you get really sick and you decide that you need to come to the emergency room or something else, call ahead so that they know you're coming, so that everybody can take precautions to make sure that you're safe, but to make sure that everybody else in the environment's safe too. Please.
Kind of dovetailing, my name is Nicholas Zegg from Davis College. Kind of dovetailing on that, it seems like the greatest risk to communities like Morgantown that are somewhat disconnected is disruption of services and the ability to absorb the impact like hospital beds and that sort of things. And so out of curiosity, how is WVU working with the community to prepare for this disruption of various services? And also like if there's hospitalization, number of beds that the hospital can deal with?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And one of the things that we came together last week in Charleston, the governor invited a roundtable of a number of the state health leaders and representatives from all of the health systems. Is we plan to work in series, not in parallel. So for instance, here in Morgantown, Gen and WVU Medicine will be working together to make sure that we have appropriate surge capacity. So I'm an ICU physician. That's what I did at Ohio State for a long time. And we always do a lot of disaster planning, management, surge capacity, because you want to make sure not just that you can take care of the issues you have today, but if something comes up that you have the ability to approach that. And we believe we do. There are a number of different sort of technical considerations, not just hospital beds, but doctors, protective equipment for doctors, which have become more short in nature across the country. And we just had a call this morning talking about how we have reserves of some of this protective equipment. Also a technique called ECMO, which is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, basically the ability to use bypass like you would in cardiac surgery for people that are really sick. In China, that made a big difference in a lot of outcomes. And we have one of the few certified ECMO programs in the state and the region. So we're going to ramp that capacity up. So we're already starting to plan and think about that. The goal will be not to have to use that. And if we do good public health measures, we believe that we can create the opportunity to minimize that. But really good question. Any other questions or any questions from the TV audience? Okay, well, you guys have my cell phone number. If you don't, then Emily and others can, oh, sorry, we're closed for business now.
So I'm curious what information is going out to a lot of the undergrads. My spouse works over on the undergrad side of the campus and has specifically asked advisees not to come in if they're sick, and has been basically ignored across the board. So I'm wondering what messages they're getting at this point to make smart choices about where to be and where to go and where not to go.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And I know that we have a central, what's that? I'll let you answer that, Corey, but let me just say though, that what we want to do is that there is a larger set of messages that we have a website, we've sent out emails, et cetera, but these are messages that need to go between you guys and our faculty and our students. I mean, we need to set a new set of expectations and standards during this time. It's easy enough for us to say, oh, it's kind of weak, you have a little cold, oh my God, can't you come to work, can't you? And we've sort of taught that in some ways, that we all, you know, we don't miss much work, you know, most of us have extra sick days. But on this one, we want to be really thoughtful because of the potential risks to other people. So we're redefining some of the culture that we have both said and not said and behaved with as faculty, as leaders. And we want to make sure that we are sharing that not only is it okay not to come in if you're sick. In fact, we don't want you to come in if you're sick. And even some of the rules that sort of said that you need to come to class, or, you know, or you're going to fail the class are issues that we have to deal with differently. So I think a lot of this, as you are alluding to, we are starting with the messaging, but it's all of our jobs to spread these messages, not just our communication people or UR people or leaders. It is all of our jobs. And as people have questions and something that's, you know, you can't find or you have a question, I'm happy to try to address it. And people can email me or text me or call me. And I'm happy to both either drive you to the resource you need, or I'm happy to answer the question if I can. So Corey, do you want to address that? So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Corey Ferris, Dean of Students. And so just to let you know about some of the things that we're doing, we are, as Dr. Marsh said, we're constantly now engaging students. We're looking at different ways, for example, coming up during spring break to collect information where our students may be going to, so that we can better advise them on their return on campus. But we're looking at a couple of different scenarios. But as we do throughout the year, As students self-identify that they're not feeling well and are going to be out of class, we will encourage that. And what we typically do, those of you that are aware, we will send you messages from the Office of Student Life. The name probably you'll likely get it from is Whitney Oliverio. She'll notify you that the students are out of class, and the message generally to you as well as to our students is it's up to the student to work with you, the faculty member. We push the students to connect and engage with you to work out whatever is reasonable for you to expect, I guess, for them to complete their assignments and their coursework. We're also pushing out to them, as Dr. Marsh mentioned, about calling in advance if they're not feeling well to see how they can work with you over the phone. And most of us have some sort of device that also has a camera, so we're encouraging students to Skype or use Outlook or FaceTime or those other face-to-face through video chat to connect with you. We're also connecting with our students because we know some students are extremely stressed about this. So our Caruth folks are on point and trying to manage this. That will become more difficult as students start staying away from classes and things like that. Then how do we appropriately engage with the student over the phone and meeting appropriate ethical guidelines that they're following? The other thing is on the housing side, those students in the residence halls, I'll let you know that we've got ways to provide housing for them in an isolated fashion where they're not engaged with other students. We're also making thermometers available. If students say, I'm not sure if I'm feeling well, we've got disposable thermometers that we'll be making available to them. We will be signing the restrooms a whole lot more to encourage them, again, to wash their hands an awful lot. I mean, just so you know, in the dining halls, we are doing some things where we're changing out some of the utensils much more frequently, like on an every 20 to 30 minute basis to help, again, so we can sanitize those utensils a whole lot more quickly. And then also our dining folks are certainly partners with students who are ill. We're able to deliver food to our students where they're at, and we'll work with them depending on what foods they need, whether it's liquids or they can eat solid foods. But we'll be meeting the students where they're at. And again, I appreciate, I know many of you over the years and are cooperating and work with our students as they're out for a variety of reasons, but we'll continue to partner with you. So if you have questions, just say so.
So I'll just wrap this up. I wanted to say also that we will be sending out, the university will be sending out a spring break message very soon to students and to the faculty community about our recommendations. And we're actually also setting up an email account so that questions can be sent to that email account so that we can respond with a unified voice. We're just getting calls and inquiries from everywhere. And we just want to make sure that we're not giving different information and creating panic. And I guess my last thing I just want to say is, you know, let's just be really calm about this and not panic and not communicate that to our students and let them ramp us up and their parents. And, you know, we do know that, yes, it's a very quickly spreading virus, but as Dr. Marsh said, it is the fatalities it's a very small percentage. So we just want to have, you know, some balance about this and not get crazy, but we are, as an institution, poised for what may come. So any other questions for me? Any questions, Potomac State or Tech?
Potomac State, no questions.
No questions, WVU Tech.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
And without any further ado, we are now going to have a presentation from BJ Davison, who's our Executive Vice President and Chief Development Officer for the WVU Foundation.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm not BJ Davison, obviously. My name's Cindy Roth. I decided to tag along with BJ because why not? I have the honor and pleasure of serving WVU and WVU Foundation as the President and CEO of the Foundation. I started my 7th year, I cannot believe it, this past January. BJ, you're in your 5th. 5, wow, that's really good. So, and we've never had this great privilege. So I really want to, I know BJ wants to give a shout out to Lisa. I'll let you do that right now. Absolutely. And to say thanks so much for that.
So our great colleague, Lisa DeBarnamaleo, has been trying to expand sort of her experiences and is doing a little bit of work with us in the foundation and learning more about fundraising, and really in a discussion with her, we came up with what we really should be talking to Faculty Senate. And also as we plan for the future, we've been hearing from our own board as well as some consultants that we're working with that we need to do a better job of telling our story internally and making sure everybody understands who we are and what we do. So we thought this would be perfect time to do that.
Right. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We just go like this. Oh, can I just go like that? Yeah. Is that good?
It's not shared behind you.
Oh, it's not shared. Oh, let's share. It's good to share. This part's good to share, right?
I don't know.
Bless our folks in technology. I appreciate that so much all the time.
Okay, sorry.
1 hour. We'll wait.
While we're getting this to pop up, one of the things that we are so appreciative in our time, and I started 2 weeks before President Gee. Can you believe that, Gordon? That's pretty wild. I know, but was really to work on partnerships. Our foundation had really not been well known by anybody, and yet we're proud to be around for over 65 years, and that's really great. Started by President Irvin Stewart at the time, and wanting to be able to have a vehicle for us to be able to have a way to provide philanthropic opportunities for donors and grads and corporations and foundations, friends, et cetera, to help support West Virginia University. And yet those partnerships had not been really very strong. And so that has really been a heavy focus for us, certainly in my time, to really switch that culture around, to reach out and to help make sure that we're able to find those partnerships that make a lot of sense, to be able to do that, because we survive, we only live to work for you, to work for WVU, for the students, for faculty, for staff, for our researchers, for our patients, to be able to do the things that we need to do to raise philanthropic support on a private perspective. And that's important. So again, this is not going to be, these couple of first slides are not going to be anything different, but obviously we are a separate 501c3, and under the statutes of the state of West Virginia, that provides us the ability to utilize services, to be able to raise money under the Internal Revenue Service Code. It allows us to be able to keep donors who wish to have their gifts confidential, to be able to keep them confidential. That's an important component to make sure that as a tax exempt organization, those are things that are critical to us to be able to survive. Both BJ and I have worked our entire careers in the nonprofit industry, and that's a really important component. I'm a nurse by background, so I came from the healthcare side before I went into the academic components in fundraising, and so it's been a beautiful journey, and that kind of encompasses that. A couple of myths that we thought that we would kick today off with about the foundation: that we sit on a whole lot of money. Well, there is a lot of money in our assets under management. And I said, if we had to fit something on a t-shirt, we raise it, we invest it, but we give it back. So we don't raise money for the foundation for ourselves. We do not provide grants as many organizations do. We raise money from foundations who do provide grants to mostly faculty and researchers to do great work in that regard, but we don't actually provide a grant ourselves. And obviously, as some people would say, well, if you're independent, you can do your own thing. No, we don't. While we are separately governed by a separate board of directors, again, the synergy between the university and the foundation is of utmost importance, and those expectations are super high to make sure that we're in sync and that we don't go marching down that path. So what are some of the things that happened, and I call it yesterday, today, and then going forward, looking down that road? In a very short time, in the last six and a half years since I first came, we've really seen some exponential growth in fundraising. And I would call it a little bit sleepy at the time whenever I first arrived. We were doing very good, but we weren't reaching the potential that we possibly could. We weren't reaching out to enough donors across the country. We weren't reaching out to enough corporations and foundations to do that. And so we started putting, and the board said, Cindy, go figure out a way to be able to help us achieve the potential that we believe that we can possibly do. So we've been able to experience some transformative growth. We've also been able to grow in the amount of money going back to the university. So we've been able to start to now turn that corner. It was in the low $80 million or so in the course of a year. And we've now exceeded that. We're up over $100 million, and that's important. Our goal is to try to be sustainable of that every year going back to the university, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There is a spend component that when an endowment comes in from a donor, any level of donor, we cannot touch that corpus, but there is amount that spins off. That's called spend. And so we have a spend committee of the board. We work with our finance folks to do that. We have representation from one of our deans to be on that all the time. Currently, Dean Javier Reyes is our representative on that committee. And so we have set that national standard on spend. And that's an important component. So we find out all the time, what are our peers, our aspiration peers, what are they doing to do that? We put together again, we never had foundation reserves. There was never anything from a perspective that if really truly the bottom falls out, what do we do? And so the board said several years ago, let's make sure that we have that money to be able to do that so that there's reserves. Not for us, but to be able to go back for emergency purposes to be able to make that happen, and that has been there. The hedging strategy, you heard me say we raise it, we invest it. On that assets under management, we now have a hedging strategy. In the crash of 2008 and 9, we didn't have a hedging strategy. And so all those endowed funds lost 29% of their value. That's a lot. So a lot of those scholarships and components went what they call underwater. And there was not money to be able to pay for it. That's unacceptable. So we now have a hedging strategy in place. And this market volatility, let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, it's really been having major problems, certainly of recent weeks. And when it starts to dip down in the market, the hedge kicks in. It's like an insurance policy that covers us and actually gives us reimbursement back to those funds. Again, not to the foundation, but to all those assets to help protect it. And so that's now in place. You heard me say about the transformative growth of assets. When I came, we were managing, I'd say probably about 700 million, maybe 800 million. We're now up as of the end of December about 1.9, it's about 1.8 billion right now. That's all of the hospitals for WVU medicine, and it's all of the campuses and all those things. So again, it really thinks like one WVU in that regard. Our investment staff are all certified investment professionals. Again, we have an investment committee who literally live and do this every single day of their lives. And so it's a very strong group to be able to make sure that that's protected. We adopted a first ever foundation strategic plan to try to figure out how do we go along down the path in partnership with the university. We're changing our foundation culture. We're really baked in now to the belief that if you don't have trust, transparency, you'll never get teamwork. And so we're working really hard to do that, to make that happening. And again, those results, they say results speak for themselves. In these recent, we continue to surpass our fundraising goals, which is important. And what that's telling us is our focus is more laser sharp. We are getting more gifts from some wonderful donors. We're finding new donors, and those are things that are all important that help us. So BJ is going to talk a little bit about our previous campaign because it's going to lead up to the current one. Go ahead, BJ.
So where's the money? So you'll see here, we call it the old campaign. So that means indeed that we are planning the next one in the early phases now, actually. And so I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of revisit some highlights of the previous campaign, because you can't really look at and determine where you're going next without understanding how you got where you were. So with that in mind, a couple key stats here. So we achieved over $1.2 billion. that State of Minds was a 10-year campaign. It was not intended to be that long. Some of you, if you were here, might remember our working goal was $750 million. That was hit early. The board extended the campaign timeframe and the goal to $1 billion. Again, hit early, but we hit 1.2. 90,000 donors basically to the campaign over that period of time. And one of the key things I always like to talk about, which we'll see again later, but I won't say it twice, all gifts count, but some count more than others. And of 90,000 donors, 150 of whom gave 60% of the money. Okay, 150 of the 90,000 donors gave about 60% of the 1.2 billion. So yes, you could spend as much time working on a $5,000 commitment as you can a $5 million commitment. And while everybody needs to feel good about the gift that they make, we really have to focus on the top of the pyramid. So, you know, those numbers are just, will continue to be important for us. There's some stats about building greatness just to basically show we really came a long way in State of Minds. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that our brand is becoming more recognizable, our reputation is enhanced, and people want to be part of something that's successful. Most of our units achieve their goals in State of Minds. And you may or may not remember that goals were, again, when the large goal was hit early, all the unit goals increased as well. So some of those goals were definitely stretches, but we also know in the vast majority of those cases where a unit did not achieve its goal, there was like 1 or 2 gifts that just didn't come together that were very real, but the timing was just not right. So when we look at kind of where the money went in terms of priorities, these were broad priorities set, again, at the beginning of the campaign. Large chunk for undergraduate student and student experience and education. Also research initiatives, faculty excellence, professional and grad student education, and then health, economy, and quality of life. One of the key things I like to say about this pie chart is that most of the money really benefited people, which is what we see over and over again in fundraising, is that people want to help others. So when you roll up, you know, undergrad student scholarships, graduate student scholarships, you know, faculty excellence, they were people wanting to invest in people, and that will continue to be the case, I'm sure, as we move forward. And when you look at where the money came from, again, half of it came from people. Yes, there are foundations, corporations, other entities, but this is mostly a relationship business with half the dollars coming from individuals and going to support individuals as well.
This next one is my favorite slide, so I have to always interject it. This slide, I think, is a, oops, wait, I went too far. I go too fast. That was, I don't want BJ's rules. Those are his rules. I love, love, love this. This is a very telling slide. So this is, again, through the whole campaign. And we will track this same kind of momentum as we go into the next campaign. So you can see on the far left before the campaign, and then that which was added for the total on the very right. And again, back to BJ's point, this is all about people. Scholarship, 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 endowed professorships, endowed chairs, more research funds. In every single category, they went up very strong, hearty, some cases nearly doubling. And that's important. And that's because it provides foundational money to be able to go out to help all those appropriate things, which I do think is really helpful to do. So you'll just see that, but we wanted you to make sure and see that. Because I think, again, picture's worth 1,000 words. You can see the actual growth that went. Now BJ's got his favorite slide.
I'll do this quickly. You have to spend money to raise money. That's all about being appropriately resourced and spending just enough that you don't look like you're super wealthy when you're trying to raise money. We can't raise money from behind a desk, although certainly with technology, we're doing a lot more through email and PDFs and signing gift agreements without sitting down with people to actually hand them a special pen. Here's where you come in terms of staff can't do it alone. Back to the notion that people like to give to people. Yeah, I'm paid to raise money, right? But for a donor to actually interact with the end user of their dollars is where the magic really happens. I can't articulate for you as faculty the way you can personally about what a gift will do to support you or your work or your department. So this is where we do need help, and we'll be doing more of that. Yes, content expertise, right? And being able to look a donor in the eye and say, this is what your money can do. And here's what I've done so far without maybe a lot of philanthropic investment, and with X more impact-wise, we can get this much further. All gifts count, some count more than others. And special event fundraising is just not cost effective when you add in the price of teamwork. Not going to go through this. These are the various pieces of the fundraising units and the people and the positions across the institution. The pyramid here, I want to talk a bit about this for us. So again, getting back to the 150 folks gave 60% of the dollars. So for us as an institution, we consider leadership philanthropy to be a gift of $5 million or more. Some places that's higher, some places that's lower, but for us, it's 5 million. Principal gifts being, 7 figures, so $1 million to 499. You see major gifts, we recently kind of moved that in the course of the last campaign. You used to be able to do an endowment for $25,000. We consider that to be a major gift. Needless to say, we had many gifts of that size because staff were comfortable in saying, oh, a minimum endowment is $25,000. People say, sign me up for that. They maybe could have given us 2 million, but we went, so we got some training issues there. And then annual giving, $1 to 50,000. Now, one of the things as we look in this next campaign, we really look at year over year, 8-figure gifts make a huge difference. When we think about the sort of number we want to test in the next campaign, we really need a 9-figure commitment. And that's $100 million. So first of all, we got to figure out who that might be, right? And if we need one of those, we really need 4 legitimate prospects. And we also need, again, where expertise comes in, we need some really whopping ideas. Like that is not going to be a scholarship. That's going to be like solving solutions to real world problems in a legitimate way where we clearly have leadership as an institution. So that is going to be important for us moving forward.
So so what we've been doing since the end of the campaign has been doing some change. So change causes pressure, but we know that pressure on coal produces diamonds. So if we want to get some extraordinary results, we're actually going to make sure that we have to get that change to happen. So a lot of our infrastructure, we realized we hadn't touched our infrastructure basically for 12 years. And that's challenging. So we're in the midst of making some changes to that. We're in the midst of getting ready to go into the cloud with a CRM platform through Blackbaud. Very lengthy process. It's a 2-year process. There have been a lot of different components that live underneath that umbrella that have again, lots of testing, lots of things to make sure that we can be faster, more efficient, and balancing that so that we can continue that when we go into a new campaign to grow more, we need to make sure we can do that. And in order to do that, one of our big questions has been, well, do we have the ability? What's our vision? Where are we going? And do we have the capacity? And so we'll tell you a little bit about capacity. Capacity is telling us, yes, it's there. So we met with President Gee, and he said, this is like a visionary component. And President Gee, you'll recognize this slide from something we took to our board of directors back last February, really, when we're trying to figure out what overarching themes does West Virginia University have. Obviously, be the best land grant institution, fiercely land grant in the United States. That's all of us. That's all of you as faculty, it's professors, it's the students. It's the core of who we are as West Virginia University and all those different levels. Maintain the university's R1 status. Stay in that club. When you get in, it's great. Everybody else, because we knocked somebody out to get in, so others are now trying to knock us out, right? So we want to maintain that. The boundaries of healthcare delivery. I mean, not just when times of crisis happen, but all the time, to be able to make sure that the people of our state and the surrounding areas, they deserve the very best in healthcare. And that's an important component. Education, economic prosperity. Those are fundamental components that are certainly helpful, that we've got to make sure that this small state has the ability and the capacity to be able to, that every student can be able to have the education to get that leg up and be competitive. And of course, at the very end of the day, to improve the quality of life for all of West Virginia.
So as we look to the future of this next campaign, we know that what got us there won't get us here, or what got us here won't get us there either. But the strategies that we employed when State of Mind started 12 years ago really won't be enough. So we really believe we can become a $2 billion organization, meaning assets under management, and be raising $200 million a year. The data tells us we have the suspects and the prospects. We don't always have enough staff and resources to get there, but we had $177 million a year last year, so $200 million is not that far away, but it's more than just hitting it once. It's being sustainable and always being at that level. We believe the institution is worthy of it. We just have to figure out how to get there.
So in order to help make that happen, we've got to make sure we're exceeding the expectations of our donors and all of you. Every one of our stakeholders, no matter who they are, we make sure that we meet every week with President Gee and Provost Reed to sit down and say, what do we need to be doing? And they say, give us our marching orders. Who do we need to go see? Where do we need to go and make our focus so that that entire giving pyramid all gets better and that we're able to be successful. So, but operationally, that we as a foundation have to be able to be as strong as possible, be more agile to make sure that this environment is changing rapidly. The face of donors is changing rapidly. Expectations from donors, wow, they're going up much, much more. They want to see, what's my return on my investment? If I give $100,000 in a certain program, what do I get back? They feel good about it, but they want to see, they want to touch, they want to feel, what's the research? Who are the students? Who are my scholars, right? They want to be able to see that. That's fair because they're parting with big money, and that's important to do. So that's an important piece. Do you want to add anything to that? Or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So this is one of Cindy's favorite charts too, but I'll do it. We tag team. So, you know, as we really set the stage for why it's so difficult sometimes and challenging to raise money and what the needs are, clearly you all know that state support of higher education has been declining, likely to not bounce back to earlier levels in various parts of the country. Meanwhile, philanthropy is increasing, and so we're becoming ever more reliant on charitable dollars, not only to, we used to say, you know, 10 or 15 years ago in this business that philanthropic dollars really kind of gave an institution a leg up, sort of value added, kind of icing on the cake. And now we're kind of getting to the point where it's more than that, and it's basically meeting some of the very fundamental demands and needs that state appropriations used to provide. And you all know this because you're getting the phone calls and you're seeing your mailbox as well. The number of nonprofit organizations, the charitable sector has exploded since 1986. The competition is very fierce. And just because someone graduated from this institution does not mean they're obligated to make a gift here. This is a really interesting study from the Bank of America 2018 U.S. Trust, high net worth philanthropy, percentage of households that gave to certain causes in the course of a year. And when we look at some of the skepticism for higher education that we all see in the popular press all the time about, you know, the kid who has a liberal arts degree from a fine institution living in his parents' basement with lots of debt, you'll see that 22% of those households gave to higher education that year. And this is a shift. And when you look on the other side, it was 4% of the dollars. So we know we've got a bit of an uphill battle. We know the healthcare, though, is in there, right? So that's important. That's good for us. But it seems like donors are becoming much more enthralled with giving kind of frontline money to organizations and entities that serve people every day. Anything to add there, Susan? Okay. So we know there are ways that giving is likely to change. We talked about the bigger donations. That will continue to be the case. We have to utilize technology to mobilize support. And we are working right now actually with a company that's helping us with data analytics all the time. Big donors continue to be important. People are investing with a social conscious, and transparency is really key. And as a new generation of donors has come into the major giving ranks, this kind of one size fits all, this sort of gift agreement, I'll do a scholarship fund, is really changing to, I've got a very specific agenda. Individuals are acting more like foundations in a way. I've got a specific agenda I want to accomplish, I want results, and I want to know that I'm different. Alumni giving, we know that The younger donor is really challenging for most institutions, and we have some data here sooner. Eventually, younger donors, they're not joining, they're not coming on board with annual fund gifts, they're not joining the Alumni Association. We know the stock market will continue to, bump giving. Today would not be a good day to ask someone for a major gift probably, but in any event. When we look at some of our own statistics, this is 10 years worth of data, this just shows the way participation drops in our younger classes over time. And this is a huge challenge for us as well as any other institution. I think the younger generation, I am an old man, so they're not necessarily graduating with that sense of, oh, the natural thing for me to do next is make a gift to my alma mater. And so we've got a lot of work to do in that regard, and this will continue to be a challenge for us. I'm going to skip. Okay, heading to the next campaign. So we are doing a lot of new gift modeling. We're doing a lot of data analysis to look at, of all of our affiliated folks across the country and across the world, whom we don't know well, where do we start? We're in the process now, just started the feasibility study, which will really be testing a campaign goal. Of course, state of mind's 1.2 billion, 10 years. Next campaign, right? Not less, bigger number, shorter time frame. So how do we go about doing that? And it's basically about how we maximize return on investment per our frontline fundraiser. Good. So we're working with Benz-Willey-Flessner. They actually presented to the board at our February board meeting. Our key consultant is Brody Remington, a very senior development professional, in helping us ask and answer a number of questions. Are we ready? How soon can we do this? Are the staff and donors lined up? Do we have a compelling case for support? We've been working with Gordon, President Gee, Provost, Reed.
We always
Marianne.
call you Gordon Marianne.
No, I'm trying to be formal, so sorry about that. Clay, Rob Alsop, others, and just trying to refine what is a test message. So part of the feasibility study is working with the draft prospectus that we take out to potential key leadership donors or prospects, which we're just starting. And we're asking them not only for their reactions of, is this legitimate? Is this real? But can you see yourself participating at a certain level if appropriately motivated? And so it's all about what kind of goal do we set and when do we start counting and go public? There you go. I'm jumping ahead. So the board will have a report in June. That's when we'll really look at the goal and the time frame. We'll be doing outreach here on campus through leadership, through deans, department chairs, and whatnot to begin to assess the message, and we'll work on the marketing plan from there. I jumped ahead a second. The key concepts just for now that we're talking about in this campaign, in this document, kind of three key prongs. Student success, of course, first and foremost, and everything that entails. Health and wellness, which is about our signature programs and creating a healthy model. And then the third category, discovering solution to real world problems. I always stumble on that. And that's where you fit in, supporting world-class faculty, discovery through innovation and commercialization, and foster leadership and character development. So that's, those are the key messages that we're testing at this point. And in terms of so where do you fit in as faculty? Well, first and foremost, one of the most important things, if you are fortunate enough to benefit from philanthropic dollars, or your department is, please use them. It's really hard to go out and ask for more money if someone has a fund, a donor has a fund here that's not fully utilized. I know we have some issues in that regard. We're working frontline to try to work through those. If you have a fund that is just highly, highly restrictive, that is not going to be utilized, seek out the development officer in your unit and let us work together to either reshape that or get that spent. We talked earlier, help in evolving and coming up with the big ideas and really help us think more broadly than ever before. We have a corporate foundation relations team in our office, works closely with Jack Thompson and Fred King and his group, but certainly one of the things we've done really well historically is play really well in the regional field with foundation support in particular. We really need to get in front of the national foundations. And, you know, that's where we need you all and your ideas and your hard work to get us there. It makes a huge difference in that regard. So those are some of the things that we can think of in terms of how faculty can be involved. And
I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do. This incredible institution of higher education and coupled with our academic medical center really makes incredible strides. I am so proud to be able to go around the state. I just spent some time down in Colton, West Virginia earlier today. We were videotaping two incredible people, one who is an alum and one who's not, but they love West Virginia University, and they're 8 generations from that part. And they are so committed to this entire state. And so the impact that all of you make really is important. And so I just want to say thanks, and we'll entertain any questions. I hope it was helpful as an overview. Certainly we're welcome to come back anytime, but we'll answer any questions if there's a little bit. We were given 30 minutes, but we know that the coronavirus is a whole lot more important than us, but we'll answer questions. Anything at all?
Lisa, comments or question? Yeah, really. Friends.
Lisa DiBartolomeo, Arberley College of Arts and Sciences. One of the things that we had talked about was in this environment where clearly state support has declined, and we're looking more and more to philanthropic entities to help us in our work. One of the things that we can all do is to try to get trained in that, right? And in order to be really effective frontline recruiters, not only for students, but also for potential donors, is figuring out how we can help with that. And one of the things that we've been talking about with BJ and Cindy is how to train faculty who would be really good ambassadors for their programs, for their students, for their units. More and more frequently, if you're a chair or if you're looking to move up into leadership roles, you need some kind of training in fundraising and development work. And in that way, we can have a symbiotic relationship. We can learn about what they do, but we can also help them do what we need them to do.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important that you're here today helping us to understand, because I think a lot of faculty look at that and they say, well, you've got all this money, why aren't you giving it to us?
Right, absolutely. So just curious, just no commitment, but show of hands, folks who want to learn more, just kind of give us a straw vote. Okay. That's a good number. Okay, super. Thanks. Anything else? Wonderful, thank you.
I'm Peter Schaefer
Sorry.
at Davis College. I do have a question. Well, thank you first for the presentation. I found it very helpful. I tried my hand at fundraising for my program at a different institution a long time ago now, and the foundation gave me very good information about prospective donors, about our alumni, including what they're given in the past, where they would prefer to be called at home or at the office or email or whatever. And they also gave me a no-go list, people I shouldn't contact. And when I did the same thing here at WVU, I got nothing at all from the foundation. And I was very disappointed. Yeah. And so I would like to help. Yeah. And particularly for the smaller gifts, those below 50,000 usually, are much more in our reach than the really big ones. We can actually take some of your burden off your shoulders and your staff's shoulder. But that was, I hope that has changed, but that was very disappointing.
I can understand why you would be disappointed there. And our hope is that the development officer in your college or your SCORE unit's your first line kind of defense. And if you're working with them, there's no reason why we can't work together to help you, like hear the people that you don't want to talk to and here are the very best prospects and how we do it together. So yes, we're back to that transparency thing. While we don't share confidential information, we can certainly steer you in the right direction and work with your development officer to work with you to create some success there. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so much.
again,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. Thank you.
Really quickly, does Potomac State or Tech have any questions?
No questions from Potomac State.
No questions from WVU Tech.
So just to follow up on the guidance about spring break, because I just talked to Kathy Slemp, who's the Chief Health Officer, and this is true for you guys as well as the students. So if you go to a level 2, 3, or 4 country, then you get quarantine coming back in, 14 days. If you go to a level 1 country, you just pay attention to avoiding people who are sick, et cetera. If you go to a big gathering in the United States, then what I think we're going to ask the students voluntarily to do is to help us understand where they're going. And so basically, if a case is identified in that area, we will know who those students are and we'll be able to contact them. And then we'll have to determine based on their contact and risk factors whether they self-quarantine or not. If you go into a high endemic area, which right now is Seattle, Washington, New York City, and Florida, I think are the 3 places in the country, and there's sub areas in there, then we will want to connect with you before you get back in to see if you need to self-quarantine for 14 days. But otherwise, if you're sick, don't come to work, don't go to class. If you have a fever, stay home. And if you've had a connect with anybody who's had coronavirus, then you need to let us know. That's going to be the instructions.
Great, thank you. So our next item on our agenda is my report, which I promise to keep very short and very sweet. Basically, I just wanted to report that our next faculty meeting or faculty senate meeting, we will be doing another roundtable type of exercise. And it's kind of timely given this whole coronavirus issue. We really want to talk as a group about communication in general, the various communications, what's working, what's not when it comes to faculty senate, we're amongst faculty members, amongst faculty senators and their constituencies, and as well as from the administration down to faculty senators and all the way down to faculty members who may not have who are not necessarily faculty senators. So when we've been dealing with various issues, or not even necessarily issues, just things on campus, it seems as though communication kind of is the heart of most of our problems, as I would like to say. So I think that if we can figure out what's working, what's not, maybe some innovative strategies to better communicate important information may help us moving forward. So that's all that I have as far as my report. This is the faculty senate meeting that we do take nominations for faculty senate chair-elect, and we currently have 2 people that have declared their candidacy for faculty senate chair-elect, and they are Ashley Martucci. If you guys would just stand up really quickly, putting you on the spot, from College of Education and Human Services, and Scott Wayne from Statler College of Engineering and Mineral Resources. Thank you for your declaration of candidacy. At this time, we also will take any further or other nominations from the floor if there are others that would like to nominate either themselves or one of their colleagues. Okay, does Potomac State or Tech have anyone to nominate?
Potomac State, no ma'am.
WVU Tech has no nominations.
Hearing no further nominations, nominations are now closed. The 2 candidates will have an opportunity to speak before Faculty Senate at our April 13th meeting, and they will also be able to submit a candidate statement beforehand. The elected candidates will serve as Faculty Senate Chair during the 2021-22 academic year, and they will, this Faculty Senate, it's the year that they will also serve as a Board of Governors member from 2021 through 2023. Great. And with no further ado, I will have Ed give us a report from the Curriculum Committee.
Good afternoon. We have quite a bit of items here. So we have for your approval, Annexes 1, 2, and 3. Annex 1, new courses report. Annex 2, course changes, deactivations, and adoptions, and Annex 3 capstone courses report. We also have, for your approval, a new major in youth and family sciences, a new BA in anthropology, a new BA in criminology, a new program in integrated marketing communications, and program changes to social studies and secondary education. And one more, program changes to the major in sustainable food and farming.
All right. So if I counted correctly, are there any questions or points of discussions for any of these annexes or changes?
Heather Billings, School of Medicine in the Anatomy Division. There are 2 courses from the biology department listed, 345 and 346, that are human anatomy and a human anatomy laboratory that do not, at least from the catalog description, the human anatomy lecture component does not seem to significantly differ from what we already offer as coursework in our anatomy division over at Health Sciences. And we're not really clear on the human anatomy laboratory being an actual human anatomy laboratory as it describes cat, sheep brain, pig heart, and cow eye as the dissections, not any human material. And so I have checked with my division chair or vice chair whether there was any communication with our department at all about this course being entered, and he was completely unaware of this. And so we would like some clarification on how this actually differs from our courses that are already being offered.
So I don't think I'm gonna have an answer right now, but I'm quite sure that when we discussed this, I believe there was communication, but I want to remember.
So are we, and what are we referring to? The program changes or one of the new major, oh, new courses report. Okay, I'm sorry.
So let me, Lou, I don't know if you are on here. Do you recall that? Because I remember that during the discussions, I believe there was some talk about some communications. So if you don't recall, maybe we will have to take these courses and withhold them. You don't have any recollection?
I don't remember, Ed. We'll just hold them and ask specifically to those reviewers to get back to School of Medicine.
So let's wait to hold this too.
So
I
Annex
believe
1, we will,
during the discussion communications, but I won't recall them. I won't have documents here. So
we'll hold Annex 1.
Yeah.
Okay. You're welcome. Any other questions or points of discussion for any of those 9 items? Tech of Potomac State, any questions or points of discussion?
No questions?
No questions at WVU Tech.
Okay, so we got clarification from Judy that we need to actually pass all the items with the pending clarification that there has been communication between anatomy and these new courses. All right. So we will make sure we do that and follow up. All those in favor, okay, so if, since we have 9 approval items, if we will combine all the 4 approval items and the 3 annexes into a single vote, unless there are any objections for us doing so. Okay, given there are no objections, those in favor of approving annexes 1 through 3, pending the noted change in Annex 1, the new major in Youth and Family Sciences, the new BA in Anthropology, the new BA in Criminology, the new program in Integrated Marketing Communications, program changes to Social Studies / Secondary Education, and program changes to the major in Sustainable Food and Farming, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State, 3 aye.
And Tech, how do you vote?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
The ayes have it. Annexes 1 through 3 and the 6 approval items that I listed prior have all been approved. We also have 3 for information items on the agenda, a new minor in arts, entrepreneurship, a new minor in insurance, and annexes, that's 4 items. So annexes 4 and 5. Are there any questions or points of discussion for any of these items? Potomac State, do you have any questions?
No questions from Potomac State.
And Tech?
No questions.
Okay, given there are no points of discussions or questions, those items are filed. And we will now have a report from Leslie Cottrell and JAFCO.
We actually don't have a report. We have met, but not in this cycle to present here today.
Wonderful. Okay. And next up is Ashley Sowards from the Taco Committee. Or Taco.
So similarly to JeffCo, we don't have a formal report. There will be information going out to the academic deans within the next month about the new workflow for reporting any unprofessional SEIs. And you should have seen some of the SEI emails already going out with our new wording. TACO is also working on exploring the idea of midterm evaluations, and more information will be forthcoming on that.
Thank you. And Leslie with the Committee on Committees.
So everyone has received Annex 6, and this is an update for one of our committees, particularly the faculty welfare, to replace a member.
Does anybody have any questions or points of discussion for Annex 6? Potomac State, any questions or discussion?
No questions or comments.
And Tech?
No questions.
Okay, those in favor of approving Annex 6, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. All right, Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State, 3 aye.
And Tech?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. The ayes have it, and Annex 6 is approved. And we will now go to Roy Nutter with our report from state government.
Roy Nutter, Statler College, and your ACF rep. And I think President Gies summarized the legislature very well. It's an election year. Not much happening other than the budget staying the same, which is a good thing. One thing I would like to remind everybody is that this is a census year, and it's very important that our students participate in the census. This is being pushed statewide in higher education. The thing that I did not understand, and maybe you don't either, when the census comes, they come as a postcard and you do it online, and there's a whole lot of things, but most students seem to think that they are counted where they vote. They are not. They are counted where they sleep, and where they sleep is Morgantown. So make sure your students understand that. Where you sleep at night is where your census is counted. Report complete.
Thank you, Roy. And now we'll have a report from Stan Hellman and the Board of Governors.
So the board met on February 28th, and there were a few things that we did in the public part of the meetings. We approved proposed rule changes to Rule 4.2 and 4.7. That's simply to include service track professors in with the rest of the classes. Those were promotion and tenure rules, as well as the reduction in force rule. Approved a funding plan for improvements to the Coliseum and the Pushkar Center, as well as an athletic center where the natatorium currently resides. We also approved the transfer of property in Montgomery to the West Virginia State Armory Board so that they could start on the operations of a second Mountaineer Challenge Academy, which will be an excellent use of that property. We also received information that the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders will be moving to the School of Medicine, and approved what is the Maymester tuition schedule. And that's it.
Thank you, Stan. Does anybody have any new business at this time? Any new business from Tech?
No new business.
No new business.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? In a second? All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.